I'm Robin Kelly. I am the Vice Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will get started with a round of introductions, and then we'll step into our cases for the night. Mr. Coughlin, would you like to start us out?
Yes. Hi, my name is Dan Coughlin. I am a resident and homeowner of Ward 3, and I live in a historic district.
Thank you. Mr. Falvey.
Hi, my name is Ryan Falvey. I'm a resident of Ward 2.
Mr. Chagnon.
I'm DJ Chagnon. I'm a resident of Ward 5 and the landscape architect on the commission.
And as I noted, I'm Robin Kelly. I'm the Realtor member on the commission and also a historic homeowner in Union Square. Our chair, Eric Parks, is out this evening with happy family business. So let's get to it. Our agenda this evening for Tuesday, April 16th. First, we'll begin by sharing that pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of the agenda. Also, to share that the Historic Preservation Commission operates under its adopted rules of policy and procedure. Included in this document are rules requiring that professional conduct be exhibited by the commission as well as by the public. To view a copy of these rules, please contact the city clerk's office where they are filed. And so our first item of business this evening is we have tonight 2 determinations of preferably preserved. This is the second of 2 steps in the demolition review process. Both of these properties have been found to be historically significant. And so this evening we will be addressing whether they are preferably preserved. The first is HP 23-000071, 9 Olive Avenue. The applicant is Robert DePiro. And do we have Mr. DePiro with us this evening?
This is Steve Carey in the planning division. We do. I've just promoted Mr. DePiro to panelist. If there's anyone else for this application who wishes to be promoted, please raise your hand and I will promote you.
I'm
Okay,
here
seeing-
as well. I think
Great.
Tony Barros is here as well.
Yep, and I'm seeing a David Gorski as well.
Correct.
And you said, sorry, Tony, who was the other person?
Barros. Don't see him
I am
yet?
Not seeing him.
Okay.
But if he does, I will promote him as soon as I see him.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
Mr. DePiro, would you like to begin sharing anything with us about the property or the project? I know that you've submitted drawings of the proposed new structure.
Yep, it's just we're trying to remodel the house that's there. We're trying to add a small addition off the back. We're keeping it a single family. Obviously all new exteriors, new windows. We're trying to match, we're trying to keep like the front porch, try to keep it modest to the neighborhood. As far as, we're not trying to do anything too modern. Obviously just renovate the structure, add a little bit more living space. That's our intent. As on, it kind of shows that on the drawings as well. Keeping some wood elements, but also keeping it, maintainable. There's going to be some, obviously some composites and hardy siding and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is there anything else that anyone from your group would like to share with us or add before we move on to public comment?
I think Dave is here. He might. I know he has a few things he might wanted to jump in on.
Thank you. Mr. Gorski, did you want to share anything with us? Um,
I guess you could
No.
just proceed. Yeah, if he
Okay.
raises his hand or something, just,
okay, and, Mr. Carey has, Mr. Barros
I was
joined?
just gonna add, he, has, and I've, selected to promote him to panelist. Should be rejoining. There he is. He's now joined as a panelist. I'm not
Great.
sure if, Mr. Barros, if you have anything you want to add.
and Dave also said he's having audio issues, so I apologize.
Okay. Mr. Barros, would you like to share anything with the commission about the project or the property? Now, I know these guys are not shy, so I think we're having audio issues. Mr. DePiero, do you think we should move on, or do you want to reach out to them and see if there's anything they would like for you to communicate to us and the public?
Yep, I'm asking them right now, but I think they're both having audio issues.
Okay,
You know, I think overall our intent is just to keep the, you know, the context of the home the way it is. We're not, you know, obviously we're trying to renovate it to a point where it's, you know, desirable for a new family to come in there, but we're open to suggestions and, you know, anything we can do to try to make it fit into the neighborhood, or, you know, I know it was deemed preferably preserved in the last meeting. So I guess, you know, we just need a little bit more input from you guys, and, you know, if we need to incorporate those designs or elements into the renovation, you know, we're more than happy to do that.
thank you. And certainly if Mr. Gorski or Mr. Barros are able to speak and they have something they want to add, we can certainly invite them to do that once we've come back from public comment. But at this time, I'd like to open things up and ask if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on 9 Olive Avenue. And it's the question at hand is whether it is preferably preserved. Mr. Carey, do you see anyone? Please raise your hands and Mr. Carey will unmute you to be able to speak for a 2-minute period.
I am not seeing anyone raising their hand.
Okay. So if there are no members of the public wishing to speak, I will just acknowledge that we did receive in writing a comment from Mr. Ronald Cavallo, which the HPC has on record regarding this matter. And so we will close the public comment portion and move on to commissioner thoughts and questions, unless Mr. Gorski or Barros would like to share anything with us. Oh, Mr. Barros. Hello. We can't hear you. I think you need to unmute yourself. Oop. Mr. Carey, is he unmuted on your end?
He is unmuted on our end.
Okay.
Sorry, we're unable to hear you.
Okay, so we'll start asking questions, and if Mr. Barros is able to.
How about now?
Oh, there
Yes,
you are.
yes, we can hear you now.
All right, man. Whoa.
Yay.
I thought I had the Zoom all figured out.
Technology, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rob pretty much covered. I just think a couple of the pieces is, I just wanted to touch base on, we aren't looking to demo the building, as you guys may have already known. I know initially when we applied, we applied under the demolition, which was supposed to just be for interior demolition, not the entire building demolition. So I think it put us down this path. And we were also close to the demo calculations where if you pass a certain amount, and we were close enough where, we just figured we just go through the process. But as you guys know, the property has asbestos siding, so that's one of the things that we're looking to address and get it rectified, and will give us obviously a more modern look on the hardy siding. We are looking to keep the farmers look in the front and a lot of the structure and of the look and totality. The addition we're adding is in the rear of the property. We have a pretty good sized lot in the back. So from the front of the street and, you know, for everyone's that can see it, it will pretty much look like a similar home. And again, we're just looking to update the property, you know, and work within the structure that's there besides the small addition in the back.
And so the existing structure, which will continue to be the front structure, is that being lifted, or it will be at the same
Same exact place. We're just-
elevation,
then we're-
the same
yeah,
height
same-
and everything?
Correct. Correct. And we're gonna keep the farmer's look in the front with the porch as well.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Commissioners, thoughts, questions?
It looks to me like, just to make sure I'm reading it right, like there are some proposed changes to the fenestration pattern and stuff, to the window openings and the doors on the front, which isn't necessarily a deal breaker or anything. I just figured I wanna be sure that that I'm reading that right on the plans. Is that,
You are, yeah, you are.
Right.
We are
Yeah.
changing locations of windows and doors.
yeah, I mean,
Just the interior layout would change, and it's more conducive to light into the bedrooms,
Sure.
light into the living space.
yeah, good reasons to do it, and good reasons to do window upgrades. I also want to say, based on a few other cases we've had recently where the plan hadn't been to demolish more than 50% of the exterior, and then it ended up going well past that, and it finally came to our attention when most of the building was torn apart. I want to applaud the team for doing the right thing and coming forward, even though you're near the threshold and so forth, and making sure you're in the clear there.
Correct.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
And I think it's like a big thing going on in the city, and I think zoning now has added during during the framing inspection, they're coming out with the building department as well to make sure of the 50% rule.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there were two different design pattern proposed perspective schemes, the scheme 1 and the scheme 2, which are mostly, I mean, largely it's differences in the cladding and the sort of the styling of it and so forth. To me, the proposed scheme 1 is a lot closer to the current look and is going to fit in more harmoniously with the building next to it. I dig the architecture on scheme 2 from a historic sense. I'm not sure it really jives. And then I do want to point out, for the sake of the record, that the rear elevation is pretty well visible from whatever the street is to the south, because the lot behind you is basically a vacant lot. So
From Gussie Terrace,
thank you. Yes, couldn't remember the street name, and I had already closed
favorite
Google
street
Maps.
name in the whole city.
It's up there. Yeah, I mean, I do think though that it mostly shows that what you're trying to do is renovate the building instead of remove it and replace it with something different. Yeah, I think, you know, my inclination is I can see the arguments for the upgrade of the building and so forth, and I think, you know, I is the right course of action from my eyes, like, not preferably preserved with conditions where those conditions relate to a particular version of the schemes that have been submitted, or even possibly even with additional tweaks. I don't know. I mean, I think the fenestration gets a little bit more modern on scheme 1 than the current, and significantly more so on scheme 2. But I think it wouldn't feel completely out of place. So,
So I'll chime
Yeah.
in with some thoughts. So certainly the fenestration changes are going to be considerable and noticeable, but In my mind, the maintaining the form and massing is really important, particularly in such a tight little spot as, you know, a little private way like that, you know, where everything is so, close, and, you know, the house next door is of the same, form and massing. And so maintaining that front portion, is, in my mind, the most important facet of all of this. I'm less concerned about the, you know, addition of space in the back. You know, I lean more towards the fenestration of option one, as opposed to having the sort of elevator of awning windows up the front, which, will, I think, be rather dazzling, in the context of the neighboring properties. But yeah, in my mind, perhaps, you know, not preferably preserved, but with the condition that the form and massing of the original structure be maintained, something like that. I don't know how others feel about the really important components of the property's, historic significance. And I don't know, Mr. Coughlin, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what they're proposing is thoughtful. I think that it makes sense to update when you have things like asbestos siding. I think that it's important to consider, or for us to allow homeowners and applicants to update that. As you guys have both mentioned, the addition is in the back, so the streetscape won't change much, other than, you know, obviously the material siding will be different, but the massing will be the same or close to the same, which I think is one of our, you know, the major things that we look at, is whether or not it kind of maintains that that look, and I think it does that. So yeah, I think that I'm leaning towards what both Vice Chair Kelly and DJ have said, which is not preferably preserved, but with conditions about the massing.
Mr. Falvey, do you have thoughts or questions?
I really don't have anything that differs significantly from the comments that I've heard expressed. I like both designs that have been put forth. I think they're, you know, thoughtfully done. I definitely imagine seems to there's going to be great light in that property, which I think is really great, and it looks appealing. You know, just the way that it's laid out from all the angles that I'm seeing. So you know, I don't have any objections to what I'm seeing based on what exists right now, and I'd support the recommendation that's been put forth by all the other commission members so far.
Okay. Now, Mr. Carey, this is normally where I would be asking Ms. Chekowitz or Ms. White for guidance in terms of not preferably preserved with conditions. Are we limited to, you know, just like photographic evidence and, you know, retaining any historical components, you know, like salvaging things or interpretive signage? Or could we expand that to be something like maintain the form and massing of the current property as depicted in the drawing submitted for the April 16th meeting?
I believe you could. I honestly don't know for certain. I mean, it's something that we could, you know, reconvene at the next meeting when we have a clear answer on that. But I don't know for certain, you know, what's within the board's purview or the commission's purview to do that.
Okay.
I mean, the conditions are laid out in the staff report, if you go down. Have you looked, is that what we're referencing?
Yeah,
And so you're saying that none of them explicitly say, you know, talk about the massing, but they're more
Correct.
about signage and photographing the property and,
right, which,
right,
you know, certainly we could ask for that. I don't know that signage is something that would be appropriate for
Necessary.
this particular property, but,
Right.
but where the question or concern is more about the end, design or structure, as opposed to, I'm wondering the best way to do that. That's not gonna unnecessarily hold everybody up.
Right.
So,
I guess, I think, Madam Chair, if I hear you right,
please.
the question is whether that list of 4 conditions is exclusive of others, or if that's just
Is
the
it limited to
general
that?
baseline
Yeah.
suggested ones, yeah.
Is it limited or can we be creative? I'm inclined to be creative and hope it flies.
Well, I mean, it's,
Yeah, let's give our thoughts on it, and then we'll just verify with staff once we can. I think that's totally fair.
And Ms. Chekowitz and Ms. White will be back in the office tomorrow. Is that correct?
Miss White will be, I know that. And I believe would both be available, as far as I know, for the first meeting in May in 2 weeks.
Okay, so should it need to come back? If we did something that they were like, what is this cockamamie thing? Okay, so then beyond retaining the structure's original, the form and massing of the main house, is there anything else that we want to note as being important to preserve?
I think photos of the property, really high res, a lot good photos of the property would make sense, just to have those for posterity. I think that's always a nice thing to have, but I don't think signage or 3D renderings of the existing structure are necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I think if we also note a reference to the drawings, the proposed drawings that have been submitted in terms of their adherence to retaining the original front structure, I would entertain a motion to, who would like to craft a motion?
DJ is good at that. Commissioner.
DJ can
on.
try that. I see a hand up from Mr.
Oh,
Barrow.
yes, Mr. Barros, Mr. DePiero.
No, I had my hand up, but I think you guys already answered the question, because I think we're kind of concerned about timing on this, because we've been stuck historic for a while, but I think you answered it, that you guys would do a motion. If there's an issue, we would have to come back. So that's all it was. It sounds like
Yeah.
you guys are trying to get it figured out sooner than later, so we don't have to wait the month. That's all it was.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we are hopeful that what we are about to propose is kosher, that it will fly and be fine. But Ms. White and Ms. Chekowitz, who unfortunately are not available this evening, they are the ones who will be able to confirm whether we've done something incorrect. And so in the event that we need to sort of redo this, that would happen at the next meeting. But the hope is this will stick and you'll be good to go. So that's why we'd like to give this a shot, so that, because otherwise the alternative unfortunately would be waiting the 2 weeks, and we don't want to have to do that if it's not necessary. But Sarah and Ms. White and Ms. Chekowitz will be able to review things when they're back.
Sounds good and appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank
So Mr. Chacon,
Okay.
you were
So
crafting.
I was
motion.
going to attempt to craft a motion that we find the property at 9 Olive Ave not preferably preserved, with the conditions that the that the renovated structure be, oh, what's the phrasing I want to use here? That it retain the form and amassing of the front half of the building, including the porch and the general character, and that it be relatively similar in appearance to that proposed under scheme 1 of the submitted drawings.
And that we include,
Oh, yes, that's right. And Mr. Coughlin suggests a condition that we include high-res photographic record of the existing structure before the work.
we have a motion for Mr. Shagnon. Is there a second?
I second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Let's do a roll call. Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes,
and I will also say yes. And do we need findings on this?
findings.
Should we vote on some findings for good measure?
I think that the finding is pretty much given I mean, I guess that I moved that our findings are that the partial demolition of the exterior of the building would not be detrimental to the architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social heritage of the city. In that the proposed renovations substantially maintain the street character and its relation to the neighboring building and
In its scale of
What's
the
that?
original, in its
In the
form and
scale,
method of
yes,
the
thank you.
front building or the front portion of the building.
yes.
Do I have a motion regarding those findings?
I move that we accept those as the findings.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll do a roll call. Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I will also say yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and folks will be back the staff will be back in touch to let you know about next steps, but our hope is you'll be good to proceed with what you're doing.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with the project.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. Very good. And so we move on. So our next case is HP 24-000011, which is for 11 Chester Place with the applicant Adam Dash and Associates and the owner Hongling Lee. Do we have any of the applicant team with us this evening?
Yes, I am promoting Adam Dash to a panelist and Hong Ying Lee to a panelist.
Great. Welcome.
And Attorney Dash, if there's anyone else you would like promoted, please let me know.
Thank you. Hi. Yes, Hong Ying Lee and David Liu are here.
Perfect. I have promoted Hong Ying Lee and I am promoting David Liu.
Thank you so much. Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street in Somerville, representing Hong Ying Lee, who's the owner of 11 Chester Place. Her son, David Liu, is also here. Tonight, Ms. Lee is asking that the structure at 11 Chester Place be not found, preferably preserved. The property contains a two-family structure. The reason for the demolition is for Ms. Lee and her husband to live there, and they want to build a larger structure, but keep it 2 units. The old internal layout did not work for them of the current building. I note the property is currently vacant, such that there are no tenants, and imposing an 18-month delay would just keep the structure sitting vacant, which is not helpful for a city that needs housing. Ms. Lee waived a finding of significance, although this structure was before you in 2022, at which time the commission found it to be significant, but due to the passage of time, We're technically filing now a new application with the significance waived, going straight to preferably preserved. The structure has been altered over time quite a bit, as outlined in the staff report from 2022, with the bay added on the front, an addition on the left side and rear, a porch on the left front corner. The porch was then later enclosed, replacement doors and windows, wooden ramp on the front, and a rear lean-to. I would contest the original massing is not the same, although I understand the staff report says otherwise. Allowing demolition would allow the Lees to live there while not changing the number of units. And it's in the city's best interest to allow owners to live in their properties and to have a unit to lease for additional income. And that is the way Somerville has historically been, where owner occupants were there and then they had a little side unit to rent. And that's the deal here. If the commission wanted to find the structure preferably preserved, should you go there? Not find it preferably preserved, that Ms. Lee would be fine with the proposed conditions in the staff report, which would be photographic documentation, architectural renderings of the exterior, identifying materials for salvage and plans for historical signage. I should note that interior demo work on this property happened in 2022. So that the conditions, those such types of conditions would really just be exterior only. There's nothing interior to take a photograph of, which is also why it's been vacant for so long, because it's uninhabitable right now. I'm not sure what more you could do by imposing the preferably preserved other than the staff report conditions anyway. I would note that demolition would not be detrimental to the city. It would allow the Lees to live there and have the rental income, which is a good thing. For all these reasons, we ask the commission not to find the structure at 11 Chester Place preferably preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. And would anyone else from the applicant team like to speak before we open things to public comment? Not hearing anyone. If you do want to speak and you're having a hard time with audio, perhaps if you raise the hand or text Adam or let Adam know that you're trying to share something with us. But in the meantime, we will open up for public comment. And just acknowledge that we did receive written communication from Mr. Ronald Cavallo, which HPC has on file.
This is Steve Carey in the Planning Division. Any members of the public, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment. I do see Christina O'Brien. I'm going to unmute you on our end. You'll have to unmute on your end, and you'll have 2 minutes to talk. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Chris and Christina O'Brien, 30 Day Street. Historic property and neighbors of this property. Our question is, have any architectural exterior plans been presented to show if the proposed new structure after the demolition would fit with the neighborhood and the character of many of those houses on Chester Place are in their original kind of form and character.
Mr. Dash, are you able to share with us? We've not seen any drawings, but just to clarify that we're not aware that there are any existing drawings of the property.
Yeah, Adam Dash again. Yes, that's correct, Ms. Vice Chair. There are no drawings for the new property as of yet. Usually, if someone, obviously, when it's a possibility of there being an 18-month delay period, people often don't do the plans in advance of that because they know they have a very long runway till they get to that point.
Thank you. Mr. and Ms. O'Brien, did you have any other comments or questions about the property or the
Just not knowing how the process works. So if you are to have a finding of not preferably preserved,
So
Would
this
some
is-
conditions as retaining the original form, et cetera, be applicable at this time, or is that only
So-
when the plans are put in front of you?
Sure. So this is the second step in the process, where we are determining whether the property, which has already been agreed by, the parties, that it is historically significant. And we are now determining whether it is preferably preserved. And so if the commission finds that it is not preferably preserved, that would allow the property owner to move forward with their project, meaning they could demolish the project and proceed with plans. Obviously, they have to go through any zoning relief that they, depending on their designs, zoning relief and building permits and all the rest of that. But in terms of historic, and the design, we would be done. If the commission votes this evening and finds that it is preferably preserved, that would begin an 18-month period during which the property owner can work with his staff in the commission office to come to agreement on a design that would work for the applicant and work for the city. Otherwise, they could also just wait the 18 months, at which point the owner would be free to demolish the property and the city would not have any say beyond any requirements of the building department or zoning. So does that help answer?
Thank you for that
your
explanation.
question?
That clarifies it.
Okay. Thank you. Was there anything else?
Just to make a statement that we are very happy with the character of the neighborhood, and so many of the houses have been preserved in this area, or when renovated, kept to the character that they originally had. So we would certainly put a vote in favor of maintaining that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Carey, are there any other members of the public wishing to speak?
There are not. That was the only one.
Thank you. If no other members of the public would like to speak, then we will close the public comment portion of the hearing. And we will move to commissioners and their thoughts and questions. Mr. Coughlin, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Sometimes it's on these side streets, it's difficult to get full street views. And so we have the photos of the front of the building, but we don't have great documentation of the rest of the street, which makes it a little bit difficult to judge whether or not, what the rest of the context is. But just from a quick look, there are several other houses that have a similar design with that front gable, that unique front gable design.
The jerkin head.
Yeah. I think that the house directly across the street has that same design, from what I can tell, from Google Street View. Maybe that's something that we can ask staff for in the future, some better kind of context pictures. But yeah, so that is one thing that stood out to me. What also stood out to me is that right next to that, there is a large modern building. So it looks like that there have been projects in the neighborhood that are newer and more modern. So it looks like that there is a mix going on. Whether or not I think that it is preferably preserved, I am not sure, I guess, right at this moment. As Adam said, we're not exactly sure what, other than photographing the property. I'm not sure which one of those other items, and not preferably preserved, but with conditions, I would choose. So yeah, I could go either way, depending on how the rest of the commission feels.
Thank you.
Happy to dive in with my 2 cents, which is that I think as Mr. Coughlin mentioned, like this is it. My guess, although it's not easy to tell from I took a dive back as far as I could in old Google Street View photos looking down Chester Place, and that modern building looks like it went up in 2018. But there's a big tree in front of whatever was there before it, so couldn't tell you how closely the previous structure had looked to the ones across the street. And it looks like, you know, Chester Place was this little group of 5 or 6 gable front houses of fairly similar massing, and the 2 middle ones have this sort of interesting clipped front gable going on. They kind of make a pair across the street. And I guess I come back to, you know, preferably preserved, well, preferable as compared to what, and in the vacuum of not knowing what's proposed for the site, you know, I think if we had a project on our hands similar to the last case where what was being proposed was relatively in character and picked up some of the details of the existing structure, I'd have a pretty easy time saying not preferably preserved with conditions. But on the other hand, if the proposal ends up replacing it with a really starkly modern building with even a different character from the other one that's across the street, I think that would be in some ways a detriment to the character of this little cul-de-sac. So I'm kind of torn about, you know, I guess in thinking about preferably preserved, I kind of need to go with I would lean towards preferably preserved with the hopes that we could pretty quickly reach a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the applicant, so as not to have it last them 18 months as they sort of wrap their heads around what it is that they are trying to do with the site. Because I think that simply saying, oh, we can let it go without much sense of what's going to replace it doesn't feel right to me in this situation.
This is a reminder. Take warfarin.
I agree. And I think that the sort of scale of the properties on that little space, the little side street, are very they're harmonious as they are. The modern structure that's kind of diagonally across the street is a bit jarring. And so I do think that it would be detrimental to have, you know, to lose that feeling of coherent massing in this historic neighborhood, which was, you know, platted at the same time, and it represents the commuting history of the greater Boston area, with Davis Square receiving having train access and whatnot, and so many of these wonderful late 19th century structures. So I think I am inclined, you know, given that we're not aware of any horrendous conditions about the property, it seems that there is a lot of good original material to work with in terms of the exterior structure. The additions and modifications that Attorney Dash noted with ramps and little bump outs and things, those are easy enough to remove, and you can see through those as to what the original form and massing was, which I do believe is worth preserving for the street feel and for the overall feel of the neighborhood. So that's where my thoughts are with things. Mr. Falvey, do you have thoughts, or anyone else have follow-ups?
Well, I mean, I support the positions that I've heard stated about the massing and I would agree with that without knowing what their plans are going forth here. I'd share those concerns, and I think that that, you know, that would be my, you know, my primary primary concern is just understanding what they're planning on doing with the property, and how that may potentially change what exists in the neighborhood right now. I'd support the positions that I think you have all been very articulate in stating.
If no one has any further thoughts or questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
And Madam Chair, if I just may, I guess it's always a push and pull. I mean, about what's replacing it and whether this building should remain are sort of two different questions. And I know we've had this conversation over the years with the commission that really the new building isn't really part of this. And honestly, when the demolition delay period got extended to be 18 months, I can tell you most of my clients would rather do this process first and then plan the new building later, because it just takes so potentially very long time that they would rather use the 18 months to do the design than do the design and then come to you. So it's going to be sort of, you're going to get more cases, at least through me, that are not going to have designs simply because that the timeline got extended to the point where when it was 9 months, it was a little easier to justify the cost of doing the drawings up front. So I would put forward, and obviously I respect the commission, obviously whatever you do, but I would put forward that the not having plans for the new building really isn't relevant as to whether the current building is preferably preserved or not. And I would also just repeat what I said earlier, though I know you heard me. I'm not whether you found it perfectly preserved or not, other than the conditions on here regarding the exterior only, I'm not exactly sure what else we're supposed to do, to be honest. So, but, and also comply with the zoning, because, you know, as you know, the built environment in Somerville, almost 90-something% of it doesn't comply with the zoning. So whatever's going to be there will not be what you see there. It'll be something different. It'll be as much as we can zoning compliant, but it could be a triple decker. It could be a detached house. It could be a number of different allowed building types in the NR zoning district, with or without building components, with or without accessory structures. There's a lot of stuff that could happen here, and but it won't. There's almost no way to build exactly what's there. It's just not. And as I said, the interior layout just doesn't really work for the family currently. So that's also part of the problem. There's really no way to fix it otherwise. So I said my piece. So
I trust there are creative enough architects that can work with interior spaces, but certainly there are occasions, and I'm sure some of your clients have been in that position where they are able to come to agreement with staff about how to move things forward in less than 18 months. And if we were to find the property not historically significant, everything you talked about in terms of whatever zoning might allow, including a triple decker, could happen. And so the only mechanism we have to maybe preserve some of the scale and massing is to find it historically, preferably preserved as a historically significant structure. And so so that's the tool that we have available. Certainly, many properties are moved through more swiftly. They can move through more swiftly if they already have plans that then maybe are approved or just need some tweaking. But if it's starting from point zero, obviously that will take longer. So, but different people manage different kinds of risks differently. So.
It's just while we're talking, it's different in like the MR zones than in the NR zones, where that you got a larger project and you have more of a commercial developer, as opposed to this, which is literally a mom and pop on a 2-family in a neighborhood resident zoning district on a side street. Is not the same level of financial wherewithal as you're going to have when a big developer comes in to do a 80-unit building or something, in which case, yeah, they're going to do some level of plans before they even come, because they need to know how many units they can do to see whether it pencils out to buy the property at a certain price. In this case, you've got a mom and pop who own the property. It's already a 2-family. They want to keep it a 2-family. They just want a bigger 2-family so they can live in it and rent an apartment. So they're not going to do the plans that far in advance because it's too big an expense. But just for talking.
Right. And just to be clear, we also need to be mindful that properties can be sold. And so once, you know, a declaration is made by historic, if it can be demolished, that could be sold to someone else. And, you know, we don't have a way, you know, we trust that this is intended to be a family home with an income unit, but there is, you know, we don't have any guarantee of that, and we can't comply them to follow through with that. So again, the only hope that historic has, if the group finds that the structure is preferably preserved, is to declare it as such.
No, I understand your position.
Thank you.
I think, Madam Chair, that if I could, I think what I hear Attorney Dash saying is that as it's gone to the 18 months, a lot of his clients are coming in without plans, and that makes sense from their perspective. And I think it just then becomes a case of judging the existing building and its relationship on the merits, as Attorney Dash said. And then I think, you know, I would encourage you and your clients to generally think about, you know, if it's declared preferably preserved, that doesn't mean 18 months. That means until a memorandum of agreement is reached. And that can happen pretty quickly if they wanted to start their design process, you know, after a declaration of preferably preserved, and they're ready in 3-4 months with a design. Come to us, talk to us, show us what it is, and we can see how it's doing in comparison to the factors that we had found the building preferably preserved in relation to. And it could speed up to less than that, you know, 9-month process was previously even. But, you know, that said, I think you raise a good point that we're not going to get plans as often as we used to. And I think that means we're going to more often be simply judging preferably preserved without an as compared to what, and that's just how it's going to go. So as compared to what zoning allows, I guess, is what we have to fall back on for.
Yeah, there's a real push-pull between, and we've talked about this before, between the historic preservation ordinance and the zoning ordinance, where the zoning's asking you to build bigger by transit like this, and historic is telling you to slow down 18 months and don't do anything, when actually now the market could be completely different 18 months from one point to the next. So it's very difficult to know what to tell people to do, because the two different ordinances are kind of in conflict, but we're muddling through.
Agreed. They are. Okay. Well, Madam Chair, you were looking for a motion, weren't you?
Yes, that would be
I am going to put a motion on the table that the commission find the building preferably preserved, that a yes vote would indicate that it is preferably preserved, and a no vote would indicate that it's not.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. And all those in favor of finding the property historically significant and, or rather, preferably preserved, please say aye.
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 We'll do a roll call. Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. And then in terms of, do we need to, we'll do findings.
I think we do need to do findings, yeah.
Yeah, and so I would reference back to the importance of the mass and the form of massing and the rhythm of the streetscape and the impact that the property has on the small side street as being important.
I second.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
And so do we have a motion to that effect to
I
adopt?
think Mr. Coughlin attempted to second your findings.
Well, so first we
I
need a
think
motion
as-
to
what's that?
adopt the findings.
Right. I move that we adopt the findings.
Excellent.
I second.
Great. And so, all those in favor say aye.
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 Roll call, Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon.
Yes.
And I will also say yes. And so, Mr. Dash, you are well aware of this process, and so staff will be in touch regarding next steps. And we do wish you best of luck with the project and hope that things speed forward for everybody.
Well, thank you, and thank you for hearing me out, and hopefully we will be seeing you shortly. Thank you.
Terrific.
Very good. And so our next item of business on the agenda is a CPC update. But Chair Parks is our CPC rep, and so we don't have him here to share anything else with us. Mr. Carey, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on or discuss?
Nope.
Okay. In which case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
Very good. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Roll call, Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I will also say yes. So thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Carey, for your assistance, extra special
Yes.
assistance this evening.
Sure.
And we will see everyone again in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kelly. Well done.
Thank you.
All
Thanks to
right,
both
have a
our
good-
computers tonight. Yeah.
Have a good
Bye.
evening, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
folks.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
y'all. Bye-bye.